Well, one of our main topics that we're studying as our group project is diversity and multiculturalism. We had a list of like 15 or 20 we could have chosen, and our group decided to pick that one. We thought it was the most important and most relevant to make us successful as leaders. So if you can, please describe to us what it means to you, diversity and multiculturalism.
If I had to sum it up in one word, I would say inclusion. And the Postal Service is an extremely diverse organization. There's people from all walks of life. We have, there's males, there's females, there's different races, there's different cultures. We actually have quite a few young employees coming in now. So we have to now learn how to deal with that age group. It's funny. I have a 21-year-old son, and I actually have supervisors on the workroom floor that are acting as supervisors right now that are 21 years old. So sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with my son, and it's just a different group of folks. So you have to just manage them differently. But you know, as an example of how diverse we are and the stand the Postal Service takes on diversity, we just announced our 74th Postmaster General, and it's a woman, and it's the first woman. So we've come so far, and I think that just shows, that alone shows how far we've come and the stand we take on diversity. But to me, it means inclusion. I make it a point to see value in everyone, and I see value in all of my staff, my employees. I ensure that everybody has a voice, and because everybody has something to add, and if you grab from everybody what they have to add and highlight on their individual skills, it just makes for a better overall team.
Now, do you think that's an organizational culture from the top on down, or do you think it's, I mean, you've been in a couple different places. I know you touched on, you were in Buffalo, you went to West Virginia, and now you're in Pittsburgh for a while. And even with the different plants, do you see a difference from plant to plant or from area to area?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, like, for example, when I went to West Virginia, that was a big culture shock. It was a culture shock for me, and it was a culture shock for them. I was responsible for approximately 3,000 employees in West Virginia. And in management, and when I say management, I'm going to say mid-level managers and above. If I include myself, there were probably only about 5 African American employees.
Out of the 3,000?
Out of the, I would say maybe 500 mid-level and up. And out of the 3,000 employees, I would say less than 10% were African American. So here I am, a minority and a female now as their leader. So it was an adjustment for them, and it was also an adjustment for me because it wasn't their fault, or it wasn't the fact that there was never any diversity in the leadership role. It's just that in that area, there was just no one there because it was the most of the culture was, non-African American or non-people of color, put it that way. So I learned a lot from them, and they learned a lot from me.
That's a good point.
And it was a very good experience.
From them too.
I learned a lot from them. Had I not had that experience in West Virginia, I would not be as successful as I am now in Pittsburgh, which is a much more diverse area. But it was definitely an experience. Just the language. And it's funny, when I walked into the plant the first day, I hear people calling each other rednecks, and to me, I'm like, oh my God, how could you call somebody that? But they said, and to them, there was nothing wrong with that because they refer to each other as rednecks all the time. Now, again, I'm not going to walk around and call anybody a redneck, but I had to understand that was a part of their culture. I actually had an employee come up to me and say, oh, so you're the colored woman that we heard about. And at first I was shocked. And, you know, I could have taken offense to that, but that was just the language that those employees were used to using. So it was about, we had to educate each other. I had to educate them, and they had to educate me. So it was a good experience.
When did you become aware, do you think, in your journey as becoming a leader and developing, that you, like the light went off, or you had that aha moment that really realized that diversity and multiculturalism was important?
In West Virginia.
Yeah.
West Virginia. Because, you know, Western New York, there's, you know, there was more diversity here, of course. But that was an aha moment for me, because I had to lead a group of employees. I had to lead an entire district that was different from me. So I had to figure out how to get them to accept me, as well as I had to accept them. So that was a challenge, and it was right after I finished the MOL program. So when you talk about the book From Good to Great and all those books, I had all those books. I'm glad I didn't sell them back, because you know you get good money for them. But no, I kept them, and those books, they were great references. And a lot of the papers that I wrote, I could refer back to some of those experiences that we had. So it was all about timing. It was almost like it was set up that way. Yeah.
How about roadblocks? Did you have to overcome any roadblocks? Like getting your message across of, you know, diversity and culturalism, or did you experience any roadblocks along your way in your journey?
Not too much. I've always been one to get along with everyone anyway. I really never had a problem getting along with people, getting them to follow me, or it took a lot of communication. I spent a lot of time, did a lot of town halls, I did a lot of service talks, I did a lot of focus groups. I had to get them to understand me, and again, I had to understand them. And as I understood them more, I had to change a little bit on how I managed. I had to be less direct, because they weren't, and I had to be more, I had to do more instruction and more coaching. You know, in Western New York, when I was in Buffalo, I worked with people that had a very high skill set. Very, very, you know, I didn't have to teach them much. I just had to kind of coordinate. Well, when I got to West Virginia, the skill set wasn't as it was in Buffalo. So I found myself having to adjust, and I had to be more of a coach and a mentor and a teacher with that group of individuals. And, you know, and I didn't have to do that in Buffalo. And now that I've moved on to Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania district, again, I'm with a group of very high skilled employees. So now I can back off the coaching and the teaching, because it's not really needed. And more now, I just have to kind of coordinate. And so leadership is funny. You have to adjust your style based on the folks that you're leading. And the MOL program actually taught me a lot of that. You have to adjust your style, because one style doesn't work for every group. It just doesn't. You know, if I was to go into West Virginia and just be, you know, if I had been very technical and you know, taken a real high approach, I would have lost them. So it was good.
Another challenge that our team has researched in the MO program is discrimination among women in the workplace and America worldwide. There have been major changes in America worldwide and in the workplace in the past half century. What do you feel is the biggest challenge that you have experienced, the differential treatment of young women in your career?
This was you know, I saw you. I know you gave me the questions ahead of time, and this one was, I struggled with this one a little bit. You know, in my group, and I say my group, the other there's seven areas in the nation. You got the eastern area, southern area, etc. We're part of the eastern area, you know that. And there's 10 districts in the eastern area. And there's 10 senior plant managers. So I'll call that my core group. So there's 10 senior plant managers. Of the 10 senior plant managers in the entire eastern area, there are only 2 women. So, and we were both just newly appointed as executives. So it was a little difficult at first when you're around a group of executives, and you know, you're the minority, being a woman, and you know, and being an African American. So the dynamics, it was difficult at first to kind of, for your voice to be heard. And I don't want to say it's like a man's group, or you know, but you have to first establish yourself. You know, sometimes I feel like I have to work a little harder for my voice to be heard, or you know, I almost have to prove myself and establish credibility sometimes. But I would just call that a minor roadblock.
How'd you see that changing once you established
I do.
confidence in
I
this?
see it changing as more and more women are entering those positions. And like I said, prime example was our new Postmaster
Right,
General. Actually, you know, out of we've had 74 Postmaster Generals. This is the first woman. So I think we see it changing, you know, and not that it had to be a woman. I think our previous Postmaster General did a great job as well. But just to know that we've moved forward and we're open to now, you know, having someone else in that spot with you know, in a different perspective, different views. We haven't, you know, women in the workplace, it's tough. It's hard to balance. It's hard to balance home, because, you know, women generally run the home. And, you know, and when I first left home, right now I go home only on weekends. So I work in Pittsburgh during the week, and I drive home and come home to Buffalo on the weekends. It was tough at first, but, you know, I didn't do it until my son went to college, because it's very important to balance home and work. But once he went to college, you know, I had a long talk with my husband, and we make it work. We do make it work, but it is hard. It is hard as a female executive to balance work and home. I have a very supportive spouse. That's really a good thing, because he supports me, he supports my career, and he takes care of all those home things while I'm gone during the